This picture here is of Lauren and Wes Shermantine. I very much hate this picture. These two guys here, they thought that they were never going to be caught for things that they did. They thought they were tough guys and badasses, and they didn't have a care in the world. It's hard for me to look at it. I don't like this picture. It makes me think of all the horrible things that they did to people. It's been 20 plus years since Lauren was arrested and convicted, and I've never spoken to any media or any, programs or TV shows all of these years because, quite frankly, I wasn't ready to do so. Thinking back to when I felt good about this person, there's almost a guilt. So it's very hard, and sometimes it just takes a minute to remind yourself that it's okay that you loved him for who you thought he was. This is when we first met and when we started first dating. And this is the motorcycle that Lauren gave me a ride on. One of the first motorcycle rides that I had ever had. And it was a very exciting, fun thing to do. He was funny. He had a good sense of humor. He was very attractive, quite a bit older than me. And, he kind of swept me off my feet in a lot of ways. But when you start going back and thinking about that time frame and, maybe sharing these pictures with people, it triggers a lot of emotions. It's very hard for me to enjoy a good memory now, looking back through all of the pain that I went through with Lauren. It still makes me very sad that he was such a bad person because he was such a good person when I met him at first. Lauren wound up passing out. And I remember being pissed right away. And I looked over and Lauren was throwing up. Family members had to run over and turn Lauren over so he wouldn't choke to death. And so that was a huge red flag. But I knew that I only wanted to get married once. And I took it very seriously. And I tried my hardest for a very long time. But sometimes things don't work out the way you hope they do. It wasn't very long after we were actually married that I remember one specific time we were living in the apartment in Stockton. And I think it was like midnight, 1 a.m. I remember being on the bed, laying down, and Lauren wanted to have sex. And I remember telling him, no, I don't want to. And he got very angry very fast. As soon as I told him no, he grabbed me by the throat. And he looked at me and he said, "Don't ever tell me no." It very much surprised me. Because you tell somebody no, and their instant reaction is, oh no, you're gonna do what I want. You're blindsided. You didn't see that coming, and it scares you. I remember I was scared enough that I said to him, I was just playing. I kind of talked my way out of, you know, pissing him off anymore. So yeah, I mean, he forced me to have sex. That was one of the very first times that Lauren was ever angry like that with me. And then from there on, it started to be more often and more frequent. Yeah, it did change how I interacted with him. I was always very careful to hopefully not piss him off. Definitely didn't want to tell him no about anything. Lauren was gonna do what he wanted, no matter what I said. When I was pregnant, Lauren continued to stay out late, go, whatever the hell it was he wanted to do. And I realized very early on in my pregnancy that I would be solely responsible for taking care of the baby by myself. One time, Lauren and a friend of his, Wes, were going camping, hunting to the hills for the weekend. Later that day, Wes's wife called me.
Hello?
And said, hey, come over. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll come over and hang out with you. So I went over and I wound up staying the night there. Going home in the morning, the truck was there and I didn't think anything of it other than, oh, he's home, I'll go home, I'm home now. And I remember when I walked in and I walked up, it was dark in the house. The door that I walked into, you walk in and then you would turn and go up a couple steps and there would be the kitchen. And as soon as I stepped into the kitchen, Lauren turned on the overhead light. And I looked over and he was sitting there with the gun on his lap. And just really pissed off look on his face. And it shocked me. And I remember stepping back and he asked me, where were you? You said you weren't going anywhere. And I said, I was over at her house because you guys were up in the hills. And he was just so pissed that I wasn't home. That was one of the first really scary incidences. After we had the argument, he left the house, but he very much wanted to scare me. He made it very known that he was pissed off, and I think the gun on his lap, he was telling me that he would not hesitate to shoot me if he wanted to. Every time there was an incident like that, I got more and more fearful of him and afraid and let him control my life more out of fear. So this picture here was Lauren on another motorcycle that he had, and I want to say it was 1990. The first time Lauren really beat me up. It was late and I was asleep and Lauren called home. And his motorcycle had broken down and he needed me to bring him some tools so he could, try to get it started. I'd gotten dressed and got my purse and gotten the tools and everything, and I sat down on the couch and I wound up falling back asleep. Later that night, I was woken up by Lauren. He was yelling and screaming at me how I was a bitch.
I can't believe you would do that to me!
and he's hitting me and smacking me and, you know, pulling me around by my hair.
You know how long I was waiting for you!
But he was holding our child while doing that. Who in the hell holds their child while beating on someone? But when he was done beating me up, he went right to bed. I remember back then feeling very alone and very scared and very heartbroken. Just praying that it was over and he wasn't going to be abusive any more at that time. This photo here, I want to say this was about 1991. If I remember correctly, I was actually a couple months pregnant with our second child. But this picture here is of Lauren and then a cousin of Lauren's. And they have their compound bows. He had a couple of friends that he spent a lot of time with together, especially at West Shermantine. So Lauren and Wes were best friends growing up, and they did a lot of activities together, you know, whether it was riding bikes or going hunting. And there were times that Lauren was out with Wes, sometimes for days on end. For me, it makes me wonder, all those times, there's a good chance that he was out there doing very bad things. I came home from work one day, it was on a Saturday, and I was tired. And I went outside to sit out on the back patio. All of a sudden, to the side of me, maybe about a foot or so from me, an arrow stuck into the ground. The tip on the arrows used for these bows are called broadheads, and those are basically razor blades, very sharp. And of course it scared me, it startled me. And when I looked up, Lauren was up in the tree and he had his bow in his hand. And when I looked at him and looked him in the eye, he actually started to giggle and laugh. He enjoyed that he scared me. It was very intentional. I think it was a reminder that he's in control and I can do whatever I want, when I want, to you. How disgusting and horrible. He could have very well damn missed. It could have went right through me. You're a damn monster to do that to somebody. I would never do that to anybody. There were many, many times that I was just a moment or a second away from Lauren taking my life. I'm very, very lucky that I am still alive today, that I lived through and survived through a lot of those things that Lauren did to me. One time during one of the abusive incidences, he was abusing me, beating me up, and he was throwing me all over. He had me by the hair and dragging me around and choking me. And he hit on me so much that I lost consciousness. And I remember standing up and I was very dizzy and like just kind of out of it. And I remember getting in bed. I think very much that once Lauren felt that I wasn't going anywhere, that Lauren can start behaving the way he wanted to and being the person he wanted to be or the person that he really was. Lauren actually always suspected me of cheating or lying and hiding things from him. There was one time the kids were with a family member and Lauren got on one of his rampages.
I know there's something going on between you two.
You're paranoid.
And I remember this one time I said to him, "What do I have to do? Cut off one of my fingers to prove it to you?" And as soon as the words left my mouth, I realized that he was gonna say, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah, you do." And I remember he even handed me a knife. And I remember I put my hand out like this and I was holding the knife and I was terrified.
Do it!
Because he expected me to do it. He was gonna make me do it, but I was so stupid. Why would I say that to him? Knowing the violence that he was capable of towards me. And I remember I was just kind of like, I was just there. Like I was just trying to make it through those moments, hoping that I wouldn't have to cut my finger off. I'm very lucky that I have all of my fingers. I really don't know how I managed to get out of there with all of my fingers. I've said before, I kind of feel like the silent abuse victim because if I just stayed quiet, then I couldn't give him anything else to get angry about, you know? So I was just quiet. One of the things that me and Lauren used to do, either by ourselves or with friends, is we would go up to the mountains and go camping. One specific time, it was me, Lauren, Wes's girlfriend. Lauren and Wes wound up going off by themselves in a vehicle. And when they came back to camp, I remember them being both a little heated and aggravated and, well, just irritated in general, I guess. I really didn't think anything about it. I just thought it was, you know, something that happened. And probably within an hour or so, the police showed up. When we saw the police pulling up to the campsite, Lauren had a stainless steel .357 revolver. And I remember him hiding it under a big boulder. So when the police came into our campsite, they proceeded to question us all. Where were you? Did you go for a drive, a hike a couple hours ago? Did you have an altercation? Two gentlemen said that someone fired shots at them.
Did any of you leave your campsite today?
They heard firearms and ricocheting bullets.
You didn't get into a fight with someone today?
Lauren and Wes denied it. So when the police left, I do remember Lauren and Wes. There's kind of that sigh of relief, that energy of like, okay, well, it's done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. That was something that should have been a huge red flag to me back then. Knowing now how absolute crazy Wes and Lauren were, he hid that pistol for a reason. Lauren woke me up one morning. He already had made plans prior to go, I believe it was either pheasant or dove hunting with a buddy of his. And I remember saying, "Why'd you wake me up?" And he said, "Oh, because I'm getting ready to leave soon to go hunting."
I'll make some coffee.
And I remember thinking, that was not a regular, normal thing for Lauren to do. If Lauren had plans to go to work, to go four-wheeling, to go hunting, etc., he would never wake me up in the morning and say, "Hey, I'm leaving." So I got up out of bed, went into the kitchen to start coffee, and Wes was there. He was sitting in the chair in the kitchen, and I noticed he was biting on his nails. He was nervous, fidgety, anxious. I could tell that he had been up all night and hadn't slept.
You ready?
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, those two things seemed weird to me, you know, but not weird enough to where it was like, okay, what the heck is going on? That's something that I later on put together as him making sure that I could vouch for him being home that morning. But I never had any reason to believe or seen anything specific that would have alerted me to them doing the horrific things that they did together. Looking back now, Lauren was full of crap, and Lauren was a bad person, and Lauren had done some very bad things. Lauren and his buddy had left to go bird hunting that morning. And I'm at home with the kids and, you know, just another typical weekend morning. And I was sitting outside on the back patio, and Cindy Vanderheinen's dad stopped by our house and asked if Lauren was home. And of course I said, no, he's out with so-and-so. He'll be back later. And Cindy's dad said, okay, can you, I think he said, can you ask him to give me a call?
I just wanted to ask Lauren if he heard anything or seen her.
They haven't been able to get a hold of her. So I think he was probably just out looking, trying to cover all of his bases.
Thanks.
Later on that day, when Lauren and his buddy got back from bird hunting, I told Lauren that her dad had stopped by and asked if Lauren could please give him a call. They're looking for Cindy.
Whatever.
His response, he just kind of, in a sense, like shrugged it off. It never crossed my mind that Lauren could be a part of or responsible for Cindy's disappearance. I really never thought that he would do anything like that or be capable of something like that, especially him and Cindy being friends. Why, he would have no reason to harm her. When the detectives knocked on the door, I was surprised to see detectives there. You know, it's not something that happens every day.
Whatever they ask, I need you to cover for me, okay?
Lauren said to me, you need to vouch for me. I think I was a little dumbfounded. I just remember thinking, why in the hell would I need to vouch for you?
Hi, ma'am. Is Lauren home?
They asked for Lauren, and I said, yeah, he's here. And Lauren went out with them, and they were out there for a little while, and they were questioning Lauren and whatnot. At one point, the detectives talked to me briefly, too, for a couple of minutes. Asked me if I knew Cindy, if I had heard anything, if I knew where she was.
When was the last time you've seen her?
But they also asked, was Lauren home last night? Do you know what time he got home last night? Those types of questions. And I lied to the cops.
I fell asleep early.
I told them that I had fallen asleep on the couch, which was true. I told the cops that I had woken up roughly about anywhere between like 12:30 or so. And I told them that I had went to the back door and looked out and seen the light on underneath the barn door, which was not true. So I vouched for Lauren. I very much believe that Lauren was not guilty. He didn't have anything to do with Cindy's disappearance. Why in the hell would he? But I was afraid of him, that he would know that I didn't vouch for him, that he would probably kill me. As time goes by, it went into a couple days and then a week and then a couple weeks, and she's still missing. Well, at this point, I remember thinking, well, she's still missing. Something bad happened. And it's in the newspaper and it's on the TV. And it gets very, very overwhelming and very scary because you just don't know what the hell's going on or what's going to happen. For me, there was maybe little moments of thinking, you know, well, God, did Lauren have something to do with this? Is Lauren responsible? Does he know where Cindy is? I think it must have sank in that it was a serious situation and this girl is still missing, and these people don't need anyone telling a white lie about their daughter or a person that the detectives are looking for. I want to say that it was within a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. I went down to the police station and I said, look, I lied. I did not see the barn light on. Lauren was not home. I went to bed and Lauren woke me up the next morning to tell me he was leaving to go hunting. I decided to be honest with the detectives and tell them the truth because that was the right thing to do. I should have never told them a lie in the first place. And it's something that I did back then, and I wish I could go back and change that. I would have never done that. After Lauren was arrested, the next time I seen Lauren was in court when he was officially charged. And I went into the courtroom expecting Lauren to be formally charged with one count of murder. And he was actually charged with 5 counts of murder. And the whole courtroom just kind of let out this gasp, disbelief. How in the hell do you go from 1 count of murder to 5 counts of murder?
Yeah, I know that Cindy's parents must.
They're devastated. They are inconsolable. They pretty much know that we're only going to find a body. They pretty much know that by now.
I'd rather go home and sit here and think that way because, that's sad.
Lauren in this video, still looking out for his own butt, still trying to talk his way out of stuff. No remorse, no remorse whatsoever. I would like to think that there was an ounce of good in Lauren, but even if there was just an ounce of good in him, it didn't make a damn difference because he still did very horrible things, so. It just disgusts me at this point to hear him say those things because he was full of crap. It took me a very, very long time to come out of a trauma mode, a survival mode. You know, somewhere along the line, I realized that if I didn't take care of myself, that I wasn't able to take care of my children. And I try very hard to make the best out of life and not waste time. There's a lot of time and moments that I wish I could take back, use differently, but you can't go back.
They said engineers don't kill, machines do. But every blueprint has fingerprints. Every bolt remembers the hand that turned it. I told myself it was just metal, just angles and efficiency, the same language I'd spoken all my life. When the contract came stamped in red and silence, I signed without reading the city names. Now, years later, I watch the footage, smoke rising over roofs I once visited as a tourist. The news calls it precision. I call it recognition. Somewhere inside the blast, my design hums. Cold, obedient, perfect. And I wonder if God ever looks at his own creation and feels the same kind of shame. I came back to Stuttgart in winter. The factories were quieter than I remembered, just steel skeletons and echo. My colleagues used to joke that engineers were priests of precision. Now, after years in humanitarian design, I wasn't sure if I still believed in the religion of efficiency. I had spent 6 years building prosthetics in Nairobi, hands that could grip spoons, knees that could bend without pain. The kind of work that made you feel clean again. But clean doesn't pay the mortgage, not when your child's tuition bill arrives with a warning in red. When the recruiter called, I recognized the tone. Polite, urgent, well-fed. He said the company was expanding defense contracts, restructuring for stability. Stability. A word that always meant someone else's war. I told myself I was just returning to my roots. Engineering, not ideology. My wife said, "You can't fix the world, Jakob." I said, "Maybe I can at least feed it." The building was the same. Glass, steel, symmetry. Inside, everything hummed with invisible control. No slogans on the walls, no propaganda, just formulas, drafts, silence. Germans don't pray before work, they calibrate. And I slipped right back in. On my first day, they handed me a non-disclosure contract thicker than a Bible. On the second, they gave me a project name, Erebus. On the third, they locked my phone in a steel drawer and said, "Welcome back." I didn't ask what Erebus meant, but I knew. It was Greek for darkness. At home, my son built model airplanes, gluing wings onto plastic fuselages. He asked if mine could really fly. I told him yes, though I wasn't sure if I meant the toy or the drone design on my monitor. Each night, I came home with blue light still on my skin. My wife stopped asking questions. We both knew that some silences keep the peace better than truth. In Germany, we learned to build things that last. Engines, memory, guilt. Maybe this was just another inheritance. They said the contract was temporary, 3 years, renewable, with bonuses for completion efficiency. In engineering terms, that meant make the weapon faster, cheaper, lighter. In moral terms, it meant don't ask where it lands. The first blueprint came through encrypted mail, a frame structure with familiar geometry. I stared at the curves, the reinforcement ratios, the heat dispersion units. I told myself it was only mathematics, no weapon, no ideology, just physics. But somewhere between the first draft and the first bonus check, I started calling the design beautiful. That word should have warned me. I used to measure progress in smiles, a child walking again, an old man holding a spoon. Now, I measured it in velocity, detonation radius, and reduced collateral coefficients. It's strange how quickly ethics becomes arithmetic when the paycheck arrives on time. They told us the client was defensive. That word, defensive, makes destruction sound polite. It cleans the blood before it spills. I asked my supervisor, "Where will this be deployed?" He said, "That's not your department." I said, "And whose department is morality?" He smiled, the kind of smile that ends conversations.
The office cafeteria served everything in stainless trays, reflective, sterile, perfect. I caught my reflection in one and thought, this is what it means to disappear cleanly. The bonuses arrived quarterly. By the third, my wife started redecorating the kitchen. My son switched to private school, and I stopped attending the humanitarian alumni meetings. I told them I was too busy. What I meant was, I didn't want to explain the smell of burnt metal on my hands. There's a phrase we used in the factory, tolerances of failure. It means how much a structure can bend before it breaks. I didn't realize I had one too. One night, a client representative flew in from the Gulf. He wore a suit that cost more than my salary and carried a briefcase like a priest carries a relic. We talked about payload calibration, surface resistance, and minimized human error. He asked if we could make the targeting more adaptive for efficiency. I told him yes, because efficiency was the god we all still served. When he left, he shook my hand and said, "You're not just an engineer, Herr Klein. You're a guardian of peace." That night, I laughed alone in my car until the windows fogged. Peace, such a fragile word to balance on top of fire. My wife started calling me Der Eisenmann, the Iron Man. At first, it sounded proud. Later, it sounded afraid. She said I'd stopped listening when people spoke, that I only saw problems to optimize. She was right. War, I'd learned, was just an equation too, the fastest way between fear and money. But there was something intoxicating about the precision, the way numbers erased doubt, the way logic drowned out conscience. I told myself I was rebuilding the country's strength, restoring order through engineering. That's how pride always dresses itself, in justification. The last test came at dawn. We stood behind a glass barrier, watching the machine rise. White vapor curling from the vents, a low hum beneath the floor. The countdown started. Someone whispered, "For peace." Then light, then silence, then applause. I smiled too, not because it worked, but because it worked perfectly. And in that perfection, something in me died quietly, like a light bulb burning out in a clean room. There's a rhythm to success. It hums in your chest like a motor. At first, it feels like purpose. Then it becomes pulse. Then it becomes addiction. By the second year, Erebus wasn't just a project. It was an empire. New offices, new faces, new champagne at product launches that had no name and no photographs allowed. I wore my badge like a medal, my signature on reports like a silent confession. Efficiency up 37%. Collateral reduction successful. Performance metrics above NATO standards. Every phrase another prayer to precision, another brick in the cathedral of denial. The city noticed me again. Promotions, interviews, even a feature in a trade magazine. The man redefining defense design. They didn't use my real name.
but I recognized my silhouette in the sketches. The Iron Designer. At home, I bought a piano for my son and a new car for my wife. It was easier to give them things than explanations. When they smiled, it looked like forgiveness, and I mistook that for love. The nights grew louder, parties filled with oilmen, politicians, contractors who laughed too easily and listened too little. Cigars, whiskey, applause. I remember thinking, so this is peace. The sound of men congratulating themselves before the next disaster.
One evening in Berlin, during an industry summit, a young intern leaned close to me. Her perfume smelled of graphite and jasmine, a strange mixture of innocence and factory air. She said, "I've studied your work since university." "You make machines think like people?" I replied. "No, I make them obey better than people ever could." She laughed. I didn't. We spent the night in a hotel where the walls were too white to remember anything. In the morning, she asked what Erebus really was. I told her, something that flies where silence falls. She didn't ask again. The human decay engine had fully engaged. Pride fed desire, desire fed power, and power disguised itself as necessity. My phone filled with encrypted invitations, discreet meetings, offshore accounts, commissions masked as consultancy fees. It's remarkable how moral corrosion begins with professional courtesy. The first wire transfer arrived in a currency I didn't recognize. By the time I did, it didn't matter. Numbers have no accent. Every launch test became a ceremony. I loved the sound of turbines spooling, the smell of fuel, sharp, metallic, alive. There was something godlike in the control room. Screens glowing, buttons responding, destruction choreographed into beauty. When the missiles lifted, my heart lifted too. Each roar was applause, each tremor a heartbeat. The earth shook, and I mistook that for progress. We engineers never hear screams, only echoes. Clean, digital, delayed. No blood, just data. At night, I'd sit in my apartment, lights off, watching replays of the launches. Frame by frame, pixel by pixel, the moment of ignition. I told myself it was for research, but deep down, I was chasing the same high as any addict. Control. My wife stopped sleeping beside me. She said I whispered numbers in my dreams. She said I called them names, coordinates, altitudes, targets. She said she didn't recognize the man in the mirror anymore. I told her neither did I, but at least he was efficient. The company gifted me a plaque for excellence in applied precision. It hung above my desk like a silent eulogy. By then, I no longer needed excuses. I built a perfect system, clean, profitable, obedient. And in perfect systems, there's no room left for conscience. Then one morning, the first footage arrived. A village, sand, sky, smoke. The same drone silhouette I had perfected, gliding over rooftops like an angel of order. Then, light. Then, static. I told myself it was edited, propaganda, wrong coordinates, wrong machine. But the frame paused, and there it was. My serial number engraved near the wing, my signature blurred by dust. For a long time, I just stared, not at the bodies, at the precision, at how beautifully it all worked. The first time I heard the word casualties, I felt nothing. It was an abstraction, a column on a spreadsheet, an input for improvement. But when the image appeared, a mother's arm bent the wrong way, a child's shoe half buried in dust. The numbers began to sound like names. I tried to convince myself it wasn't mine, that the serial number could have been copied, that design blueprints circulate like rumors. But the symmetry of the damage, the angle of the crater, those were my fingerprints. You can't mistake the geometry of your own sin. For weeks, I worked in silence. Colleagues laughed in hallways, clinking cups of machine-brewed coffee, as if the smoke on the news wasn't the same smoke we'd designed to rise so efficiently. Every vibration in the factory felt like aftershock. Even the machines seemed to echo the word Erebus, each rotation whispering, "Darkness, darkness, darkness." I stopped looking people in the eyes. The reflection in the glass corridors showed a man too symmetrical, too clean, a body shaped by denial. My wife stopped waiting for me at dinner. My son stopped asking about the airplanes. The piano went out of tune, and I didn't fix it. At the plant, management handed us a new file, Erebus 2, faster, cheaper, more humane. That word, humane, made me laugh out loud, and the silence that followed was louder than any explosion. Someone asked if I was okay. I said yes, because that's what professionals say when their conscience starts leaking through their voice. The next morning, I tried to delete the design files. Access denied. My account was locked. They had already archived me. The system doesn't let its creators repent. Sleep became mechanical. Dreams flickered like infrared footage, bodies moving, buildings folding, a child's face lit by the white bloom of precision. I started hearing the drones before sleep, the low hum turning into a pulse, the pulse turning into guilt. One night, I walked to the river outside the city, the same river where my father used to take me fishing. Back then, I thought water could wash anything away. Now, it just reflected everything I wanted to forget. I dropped my security badge into the current. It didn't sink, it floated, metallic, catching the moonlight like a small, perfect lie. The next day, the company issued a statement. Unfortunate collateral, investigation pending, system malfunction. But I knew better. Machines don't malfunction. People do. And the worst malfunctions are moral, not mechanical. They asked me to return for debriefing. I didn't. Instead, I packed a single drive, a few sketches, and left for Munich. I thought distance could dilute memory, but guilt travels faster than sound. In the weeks that followed, journalists called, asking if I'd ever worked on a model named Erebus. I said nothing. Silence, I'd learned, is both shield and confession. Then one night, the footage played again, this time on a loop on every network. The caption read, "Precision strike kills 37 civilians." The anchor's voice trembled just slightly on the word precision. And there, under the wing of the machine, half buried in the sand, my initials glimmered in sunlight. No one else noticed, but I did. And in that moment, I realized machines don't remember. People do. And memory is the one thing you can't unengineer. I remember the smell of paper. Even now, years later, I can still feel it. The faint tang of ink, graphite, and oil that clings to blueprints like memory to guilt. I laid them all out on my apartment floor in Munich, pages upon pages of geometry, my life's work, my silent crime scene. Every line meant control once. Now they looked like wounds. I spent hours tracing my own decisions, the air intake vents, the detonation chamber, the thermal resistance formula. Every corner perfect, every sin rationalized. The human mind, I realized, can forgive itself for anything, as long as it calls it design. I tried to write a letter to the victims' families.
It began with, "I'm sorry." Then I stopped. Sorry felt too small for smoke, too light for bones. So I rewrote it. "It was never meant for you." Then crossed that out too, because it was. Everything made for war eventually finds its way to the innocent. I folded the letter, left it in the drawer beside my passport, and told myself confession could wait. But guilt doesn't wait. It grows like rust, eating everything built to last. One morning I found an email in my inbox. Subject line, "Testimony requested." It was from an international tribunal. They were collecting statements from weapons engineers. Voluntary, confidential. I stared at the words voluntary and confidential like they were moral riddles. For hours I hovered over reply. Then I began to type. "My name is Jakob Klein. I designed a system called Erebus. It was meant to protect, but it destroyed. I have no defense, only blueprints." I paused there. No equations, no technical explanation, just silence on the screen. And for the first time, I let it stay silent. After that, I started visiting churches again. Not for prayer, for acoustics. The echo of empty space reminded me of design labs, only gentler. Once I told a priest I built something that killed people. He said, "Then build something that helps them." I said, "It's not that simple." He smiled. Nothing worth redemption ever is. At night I'd walk through the old industrial quarter. The factories stood like monuments to both genius and blindness. Germany has a strange talent for both. We build with discipline, then repent with precision. Rebuilding becomes our ritual of confession. I started sketching again, not weapons this time, but water pumps, prosthetic limbs, simple tools for repair. I didn't show them to anyone, not yet. Creation felt sacred again, but fragile, like speaking after too much silence. One evening I opened the last Erebus prototype file. I highlighted every part of the design that had enabled destruction and deleted it. Piece by piece I dismantled the monster I had built. When I was done, the screen was blank. For a moment I thought of saving it as Erebus 3. Instead, I renamed it Vergessen, German for forget. Then I pressed delete. The system asked, "Are you sure?" I whispered, "No," then pressed yes. Munich in spring smells like rain and metal. The kind of smell that reminds you machines can rust and people can heal, slowly, unevenly, but truly. I work now in a small workshop near the Isar River. We fix things, not weapons, not miracles, just things people break when life is too fast. Bicycles, heaters, radios that only need a little current to sing again. It's not redemption. It's repetition with meaning. Every screw I tighten feels like a syllable in a longer apology. My wife never came back. She sends postcards sometimes, from Vienna, from Lisbon, each with only a few words. "Hope you're well." I never reply, but I keep them pinned above my desk. They remind me that silence, too, can be a form of forgiveness. My son visits once a year. He's taller than me now, studying environmental design. He asked once, quietly, if the stories about Erebus were true. I told him yes. He didn't look away. He just said, "Then maybe build something better next time." And that was enough. Sometimes reporters still call. They want me to testify publicly, to name the clients, the countries, the profits. But truth, I've learned, doesn't always need microphones. It needs memory, and I carry enough of that to last a lifetime.
I keep one relic of the old life, a single steel bolt from the first Erebus prototype. I use it as a paperweight. Some days it glints in the sunlight, other days it looks almost black. It's a reminder that metal doesn't choose its purpose. Makers do. And maybe that's all redemption is, the choice to make something different with the same hands. Last winter, I was invited to speak at a university. The lecture was called Ethics of Design in the Age of Automation. The students were young, bright, curious, the kind of minds that still believe in clean equations. One of them asked, "Herr Klein, if you could redesign your life, what would you change?" I paused. The room went still. Then I said, "The blueprint was fine. The problem was the motive." They didn't clap, they just nodded, and somehow that felt better. Now, on quiet evenings, I walk along the river again. The water moves the same way it always did, unjudging, unending. I think of the machines I built, the lives they took, the silence they left behind. And I whisper a single phrase I once heard in church. "Lord, give us the strength to rebuild without forgetting why we broke." Somewhere, a bell rings. The city exhales. The air tastes clean again. I was the iron designer. I built machines that outlived mercy. But every morning now, when I hear the workshop hum, I know not every sound of creation has to end in fire.